Marty O'Donnell is, of course, the composer of the award-winning and best-selling video game series, the music for Halo.
That's right. You know, the other thing is I've actually had two careers because I'm that old. My first career was in doing television scores and jingles, and one of the jingles was "We are Flintstones kids, 10 million strong and growing." So
that was you?
Some people, yeah, that was me.
Oh my gosh! You just unlocked a core memory for me here. So it's your fault.
It's my fault. Yeah, I put that
I
melody
hope
into
those
your
things were
head
actually
and-
good, because I would beg my mom to get them because I couldn't get the song out of my head.
That was the goal. That I had the same goal with the monk chant, to get that into people's heads so they would play Halo. So
I mean,
as a jingle guy,
and
that's
of course,
important.
Of course, as a Catholic, right? It's just amazing to see Gregorian chant be put on such a platform like that. I got to ask, before we get into
Sure.
the political side, when you were working on the series, did you know that it was going to be as big as it was?
Yes, I was completely convinced that this was going to be a really hot thing and we were going to exceed all expectations, and people would be playing that game for maybe an entire year after we released it. That's how successful I thought it was going to be. Which, by the way, at the time, if you had a game that was still being played a year after you released it, it was like beyond your wildest dreams. We might sell 1 million units. That was we really expected it to be great, but trust me, nobody anticipated that 25 years later, it would still be popular and they would bring it back almost exactly the way we shipped it for the 25th anniversary next year, or that somebody like President Trump would be using it as memes. None of that stuff was expected.
Well, I was just going to get into that because, here we
Yeah.
are. And I had done your show earlier this year. And so, we've kind of been chatting back and forth. And then, we were working to get you on, trying to get schedules to sync up. And lo and behold, then we have GameStop tweeting out
Yes.
that Trump has ended the console wars, the great, Xbox, PlayStation, et cetera, console wars, Nintendo. And then it just began this sort of meme explosion between GameStop and the White House and DHS of Trump and Halo mashup. I think we have a couple of the memes, right, guys?
Sure.
Throw some of those up for people who are watching. I mean, they're getting okay. What was it like to have seen something that you worked on so long ago, just kind of taking over the entire internet like that?
Well, it was surreal. First of all, we had, as a surprise, Microsoft is re-releasing Halo 1 pretty much in its entirety. The original music, the original voices, the original story, just upgraded, up-resed graphics next year. So they announced that, and that's why GameStop came out and said the console wars are over, because Microsoft also is going to be releasing it on the PlayStation. Which, nobody would have anticipated. And then immediately when the White House jumped on that and said, another war ended by President Trump, it just was hilarious at first, because you knew that the left was going to go insane and they wouldn't get the humor, and it just kept going from there. And I, of course, me and my folks, since I'm running for office now, jumped on it and quote tweeted it and got millions of views, and it was great timing. I loved it. It was, like I said, though, it was surreal. Like, who would have anticipated something like this? I love the idea that Halo is finally being used by the right, even if it's slightly tongue-in-cheek. It's video games have been blamed for so much violence over the years, and it's great to see it mainstreamed by the conservatives and the White House.
Well, I think it's great too, and in a sense, not to get all into it, but there's, there's always been a lot of gamers in the MAGA community, because it was gamers who very long time ago, almost 11 years ago now, started calling
Yes.
out the lies of the gaming media And, not to relitigate all that, but, they were sort of the first ones to say, hey, do you even have the word wokeness back then? We called them SJWs, social justice warriors.
Yep.
And said, hey, that, they're trying to inject all of this politically correct nonsense into our games. And we just want to play a great game. We just want to play, be able to play Halo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always felt like the first, what we called Gamergate, was the impetus for the sort of youthful conservative movement. I can't take credit for any of that, but I feel like, in the early 2000s and through the 2000s, most of us who were making video games were making games, and our slogan was, we want to make games that we want to play, which meant that we were gamers who loved playing games, and so we were making games that we felt were cool and fun. And the audience and you kids responded really positive to that. And then at some point in the 2012, 13, 14, someplace in there, definitely the agendas started coming in from the corporate offices and the wokeness and the HR departments, and suddenly DEI started infecting how games were being made and how game studios were being put together. And
so
you guys noticed.
You saw it yourself at working in the industry.
Yeah, I saw the beginning of it. Luckily,
Wow.
I was fired from Bungie, which is a whole other story, in 2014, just before we released Destiny, and that's a whole different subject. I wasn't fired because of wokeness, and I wasn't fired because of my political beliefs. It was a creative differences. But I did start to see it creeping in. I started to see it creeping into how HR worked, how people were being hired as the studios got bigger and bigger. I started my own studio after that with a friend who was in agreement with me about how studios should be run. And we were able to do what we wanted to do, and that was fine. But we did see it happening in some of the really big AAA studios that would have 800 to 1,000 people that they'd hire, and they were hiring people for the wrong reasons. And we saw it happening, and we saw the games starting to be infected with the SJW concepts, which turned into what I would call the woke mind virus. So, and it was a shame because it meant that the games were really no longer fun to play. They were preachy.
Well, that was the biggest issue, and so it was. You're right though. It was 2014, right around that era, where this whole thing exploded online. I had an anonymous account myself at the time, and kind of caught wind of what was happening, where people on Twitter at the time were just firing up these journalists and say, you guys are lying, you're totally fake, you're pushing wokeness, you're trying to destroy the things that we love, and we're sick of it. And that kind of nucleus has really turned itself into the MAGA movement. Now, funny enough, mine, and to be clear, mine was not from video games. I was actually in kind of the Game of Thrones world back then. But that's a story. That's a story for another day. We'll be right back. We're on with Marty O'Donnell. Want to get back with the legendary composer of Halo.